The Harmony Deep Space Station had always been known for its silence. Not the natural quiet of space, no, this was different. This was the kind of silence that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up, the kind that seemed to watch you with ancient eyes. Lieutenant Chun Park noticed it the moment she stepped through the airlock with her violin case. The station's corridors should have hummed with life support systems and recyclers, but instead they whispered, as if the metal walls themselves were holding their breath. Behind her, the rest of the first human contingent brought their own instruments, part of Earth's cultural exchange program with the Galactic Alliance. "Welcome to Harmony Station," announced their guide, a tall, crystalline being whose translucent body caught the starlight streaming through the observation windows. "We are uncertain about your musical implements. Our records show they generate deliberate sound waves." Chen exchanged glances with Dr. Rodriguez, who carried his grandfather's guitar. They'd been briefed about the station's unique resonance, species that communicated through subtle vibrations rather than sound, but nobody had mentioned this level of unfamiliarity with music itself. "That's right," Chen said, her hand tightening on her violin case. "Music is, well, it's how humanity expresses emotions through sound. Would you like a demonstration?" The crystalline being's surface rippled in what the humans had learned was their equivalent of contemplation. "Our scientists are curious, yes. Though we must insist on safety protocols." But Chen had already opened her case, lifted her violin, and drawn the bow across the strings in a single, pure note. The effect was immediate and extraordinary. Every crystalline being in the arrival chamber began to glow with impossible colors. Their bodies hummed in harmony with the violin's note, creating an ethereal chorus that echoed through the station's corridors. Warning lights flashed as the station's sensors registered the unexpected vibrations. The note faded, but the aliens continued to resonate, their bodies pulsing with newfound frequencies. Some had changed color entirely, while others seemed to have developed new facets and geometries. "Fascinating," one of them whispered, their voice carrying unusual harmonics. We never knew. All this time, we never knew." Chen lowered her violin slowly, aware that she had just changed everything. In the silence that followed, she could have sworn she heard the station itself humming, as if awakening from a very long sleep. Little did she know, that single note was about to reshape the future of human-alien relations forever, and reveal secrets about Harmony Station that had been waiting millennia to be discovered. All music activities are suspended until further notice. The station-wide announcement echoed through Harmony's corridors for the third time that cycle, but Chen couldn't stop thinking about what she'd seen. The crystalline beings, the Lumina, as they called themselves, had transformed with a single note. Their usually transparent bodies had exploded with colors she didn't even have names for, creating patterns that seemed to dance in time with her violin's vibrations. Now, 12 hours later, she sat in an emergency briefing with station security, her violin secured in a containment field usually reserved for potentially hazardous materials. "Our bodies are crystalline matrices," explained Chief Science Officer NX Val, their forms still showing traces of iridescent patterns from the earlier exposure. "We process information through vibrations, but nothing in our history prepared us for this level of resonance." Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward, his weathered hands itching to reach for the guitar they'd also confined. "But surely you must have encountered musical frequencies before? Space itself vibrates, there are cosmic frequencies everywhere. Random vibrations, yes." NX Val's surface rippled with academic excitement. "But organized sound? Deliberate patterns designed to evoke emotional responses? This is unprecedented. The changes you witnessed weren't just superficial. The musical frequencies have altered our internal structures at a fundamental level." Chen's breath caught. "Altered? Are you saying we hurt you?" "Quite the opposite." Another Lumina scientist, Valdis, stepped forward. Their newly formed facets caught the light differently now, creating tiny rainbows where before there had been only clear crystal. The resonance has expanded our capabilities. We're processing information more efficiently. Some of us are perceiving new spectrums of light. A few have reported experiencing what you might call emotions. The room fell silent. Chen looked at Dr. Rodriguez, seeing her own amazement reflected in his eyes. They'd come to share human culture, but this was beyond anything they'd imagined. There's more, NX Val continued, their voice carrying new harmonics that hadn't been present before. We've detected unusual energy signatures throughout the station since the musical exposure. Systems that have been dormant since our ancestors first inhabited harmony are showing signs of activation. What kind of systems? Chen asked, but before anyone could answer, a low hum began to build in the walls around them. It started as a barely perceptible vibration, but quickly grew into a clear, musical tone, as if the station itself was trying to join their conversation. The lumina in the room began to resonate in response, their bodies synchronizing with the station's frequency. Data screens flickered, and the containment field around Chen's violin pulsed in rhythm with the growing symphony of vibrations. Perhaps, Valdez said, their voice blending harmoniously with the station's hum, the question isn't what music does to us, but rather, what was Harmony Station built to do with music? As if in answer, the station's lights dimmed, and through the observation windows, Chen saw something impossible. The stars themselves seemed to be pulsing in time with the station's song. The human delegation had come to teach the Lumina about music, but it was becoming clear that they were all students here. Something ancient was awakening on Harmony Station, and its song was about to change the galaxy forever. Not everyone welcomed the change. 3 days after the first musical revelation, Chen stood before the Galactic Alliance Emergency Council, her violin case clutched tightly against her chest. On the massive viewscreen behind the council members, footage played in a loop, Illumina dissolving into fragments after exposure to a particular frequency of trumpet music, their crystalline form unable to maintain coherence under the resonance. As you can see, Ambassador Ryk Ta of the Silicoid Confederation declared, their rocky form vibrating with barely contained anger, human music is not merely disruptive, it is potentially lethal to certain species. We demand an immediate ban on all musical activities within Galactic Alliance space. Chen's heart raced. The incident had been a tragic accident. No one could have predicted that brass instruments would have such a devastating effect on the more brittle crystalline forms. The victim had fortunately managed to reconstitute themselves after several hours, but the damage to human-alien relations had already been done. With respect, Ambassador, Dr. Rodriguez spoke up from beside Chen, we're dealing with technology we don't fully understand. The station, interrupted Counselor Zhen of the Mechanical Collective, is experiencing dangerous power fluctuations that coincide with every musical performance. Our engineers report that critical systems are beginning to synchronize with these vibrations. If this continues, we risk losing control of the entire facility. But Chen couldn't forget what she'd seen in the restricted sections of Harmony. The way dormant systems had lit up like constellations when exposed to different musical scales. The patterns that emerged in the station's energy grid, patterns that looked suspiciously like musical notes. Members of the council, she said, stepping forward. I believe Harmony Station was designed for this. Look at its architecture, the spacing of its corridors, the arrangement of its chambers. They're not random. They follow the same mathematical principles as musical intervals. The council chamber erupted in overlapping arguments. But before Chen could continue her defense, every screen in the room began to flicker. The station's ever-present hum shifted into a minor key, and warning klaxons blared throughout the facility. Emergency in Sector 7, the station's AI announced. Quantum containment failure imminent. Unexpected resonance detected in primary power core. Through the council chamber's windows, Chen watched in horror as sections of the station began to pulse with otherworldly light. The lumina present in the chamber started to resonate involuntarily, their forms shifting through colors that shouldn't exist in normal space. Stop this immediately. Ambassador Rykt demanded. We're not doing anything, Dr. Rodriguez protested. This is the station itself, it's like it's trying to compose something. Chen opened her violin case with trembling hands. The instrument was vibrating on its own, strings humming in perfect harmony with the station's growing song. As she lifted it out, she noticed something she'd missed before: tiny patterns etched into the station's walls, visible only now as they pulsed with energy. They weren't decorative elements as everyone had assumed. They were musical notation, in a language older than any civilization present. We need to evacuate, Counselor Zhen announced, their mechanical form already calculating escape trajectories. But Chen knew running wasn't the answer. The station wasn't malfunctioning, it was waking up. And like any great symphony, it needed all its parts to play in harmony. The question was, would they learn to play together, or would discord tear them apart before they could discover the true purpose of this ancient cosmic instrument? The notations are frequencies, Chen whispered, her fingers tracing the glowing patterns on the wall. Not just music, they're resonant frequencies of reality itself. 24 hours after the council chamber incident, she stood in Harmony's oldest section with an unlikely team: Dr. Rodriguez, 3 Lumina scientists including NX Val, a reluctant ambassador Rykt, and 2 engineers from the mechanical collective. The station's hum had settled into a gentle, almost subliminal pulse that seemed to follow them through the ancient corridors. Impossible, one of the mechanical engineers stated, their optical sensors scanning the patterns. The mathematics required to manipulate fundamental forces through harmonic resonance would be beyond. Beyond us, yes, NX Val interrupted, their crystalline form shimmering with excitement. But not beyond those who built this station. Look at how the patterns shift when exposed to different frequencies. Dr. Rodriguez gently strummed his guitar, and the etchings rippled like water, forming new configurations. The lumina present immediately began resonating with the changed patterns, but this time they maintained control of their transformations. They were learning. Remarkable, Ambassador Rykt admitted, their rocky form vibrating subtly with the harmonics. The patterns, they feel familiar somehow. Like songs my species sang before we developed language. Chen's violin bow moved almost of its own accord, drawing out a long, pure note. The wall patterns shifted again, and suddenly holographic displays blazed to life around them, showing complex mathematical equations interwoven with musical scales unlike anything in human history. It's a universal language, Dr. Rodriguez breathed, his weathered hands trembling as he read the displays. Music isn't just art, it's the fundamental code of the cosmos. These beings, whoever built harmony, they found a way to speak directly to the fabric of spacetime through harmonic resonance. The mechanical engineers began rapid-fire calculations, their processors humming in sync with the station's pulse. The power fluctuations, they're not random. The station is trying to achieve perfect resonance with something. Something vast. Chen felt it then, a subtle shift in the station's ever-present hum. It was like hearing a symphony tune up, countless instruments finding their place in a greater whole. Her violin strings vibrated in sympathy, and she noticed the lumina starting to pulse in complex patterns that matched the wall etchings perfectly. The station isn't just awakening, NX Val said, their voice carrying new harmonics that seemed to bridge the gap between organic and mechanical sound. It's teaching us. All of us. Look, even your crystalline structure is adapting, Ambassador. Rykt's normally rigid form had indeed begun to display subtle patterns, their mineral composition reorganizing in response to the harmonics. The mechanical engineer's optical sensors were pulsing in rhythm with the station's beat, and Chen could have sworn she heard music in their usually monotone voices. This is what harmony was built for, she realized. Not just to make music, but to help different species find their own resonance with the universe. To teach us how to sing together. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, his guitar humming with potential energy. Then perhaps it's time we stopped fighting the music and learned how to play our parts. As if in response, the station's lights pulsed once, and new patterns emerged on the walls, simple at first, like a basic melody, but growing more complex as they watched. It wasn't just notation anymore. It was an invitation. The question now wasn't whether they should play, but whether they could master this cosmic instrument before whatever the station was trying to harmonize with arrived. Because something was coming, they could feel it in the music of the spheres, in the very vibrations of space itself. And Harmony Station was preparing them all for the performance of a lifetime. The first signal arrived 3 days later. Chen was in the makeshift practice chamber they'd established in the station's core, working with a group of Lumina who had begun to develop unprecedented control over their resonant frequencies. Ambassador Rykta watched from a safe distance, their crystalline patterns now permanently altered by exposure to the station's harmonics. That's when they all heard it, a deep, rolling note that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Multiple contacts, announced the mechanical collective sensors. Gravitational waves detected at coordinates spanning half the galaxy. They're synchronizing. Dr. Rodriguez burst into the chamber, his guitar case clutched to his chest. You need to see this. They rushed to the observatory, where a sight beyond imagination awaited them. The stars were moving. Not their usual, stately drift through space, but a deliberate dance of light and gravity. Entire solar systems pulsed in harmony with Harmony Station's ever-present hum. It's happening, NXVAL whispered, their crystalline form resonating with frequencies that painted impossible colors in the air. The station's signal has reached them. The other harmonies are awakening. Other harmonies? Chen's violin hummed in her hands, strings vibrating in sympathy with the cosmic song building around them. The holographic displays that had revealed the station's musical mathematics now showed something new, a map of the galaxy, with points of light pulsing in perfect synchronization. Each one marked the location of another station like Harmony, dormant for millennia, waiting for the right frequency to wake them. They're not just stations, one of the mechanical engineers announced, their voice carrying unusual emotion. They're nodes in a vast network. A galaxy-spanning instrument. As if to confirm this, new patterns blazed to life along Harmony's walls, not just musical notation now, but a complete symphony written in the language of physics itself. The mathematics of creation, expressed through pure harmony. Look at the stellar formations, Dr. Rodriguez pointed to the observatory screens. The stars around each station, they're not random clusters. They're arranged like frets on a guitar, Chen finished, understanding dawning. The entire galaxy is an instrument, and these stations are how it's meant to be played. The deep note sounded again, stronger now, and Chen felt it in her bones. Around her, every species present resonated with it differently, the lumina blazing with light, Ambassador Rykta's mineral form humming like a crystal singing bowl, the mechanical engineer's systems synchronizing with the cosmic frequency. But what is it for? Ambassador Rykta asked, their earlier skepticism replaced by wonder. Why build something on this scale? Before anyone could answer, Harmony's AI spoke with a new voice, one that carried harmonics never heard before in human or alien speech. Protocol Omega initiated. Galactic harmonic convergence in progress. All nodes reporting ready status. Awaiting final movement. The station's power core began to pulse with blinding light, each beat perfectly timed to the symphony building in space around them. Through the observatory windows, they watched as beams of energy connected Harmony to the nearest stars in its cluster, creating geometric patterns that mirrored the ancient notations on the walls. These stations, NXVAL said slowly, their voice resonating with newfound understanding, they're not just for communication or cultural exchange. They're terraforming tools. Universe-shaping tools. The harmonics they generate can restructure reality itself. Chen looked down at her violin, then at the impossible concert playing out among the stars. They had thought they were bringing music to a silent station, but instead, they had stumbled into humanity's audition for the greatest orchestra ever assembled. And somewhere out there, the conductor was raising their baton. The harmonics are destabilizing. The warning echoed through Harmony's corridors as Chen raced toward the station's core, her violin clutched against her chest. Behind her, Dr. Rodriguez struggled to keep pace, his guitar case banging against his back. The station's ever-present hum had risen to a fevered pitch, and the walls themselves seemed to vibrate with barely contained energy. Multiple stations reporting critical resonance levels, the mechanical collective sensors announced. Harmonic convergence approaching theoretical limits. In the core chamber, they found organized chaos. The Lumina engineers pulsed with anxious light as they worked to contain the growing power fluctuations. Ambassador Arwaiketa's crystalline patterns swirled with complex equations as they coordinated with other Galactic Alliance stations. Even the mechanical engineers' usually precise movements had taken on an almost musical quality, their system synchronizing with the station's rising song. The network is overloading, NXVAL reported, their form flickering between states of matter as they interfaced with the station's ancient systems. The harmonic convergence, it's too much, too fast. The older stations can't handle the power. Through the chamber's viewing ports, Chen watched in horror as distant points of light flared and dimmed. Other Harmony stations, their ancient systems failing under the strain of the cosmic symphony they'd awakened. "We have to shut it down," Ambassador Arwaiketa declared, their mineral form resonating with fear. "We can't," Dr. Rodriguez said, unslinging his guitar. "Look at the patterns, the harmonics have to resolve. It's like a chord progression. If we stop it midway, total dimensional collapse," one of the mechanical engineers finished. "The resonance would tear reality apart." Chen felt it then, a subtle shift in the station's song. Not just notes and frequencies anymore, but something deeper. A pattern hidden within the pattern. Her violin strings hummed with recognition, and suddenly she understood. "It's not about power," she whispered. "It's about harmony." She lifted her violin and began to play, not fighting the station's song but joining it. Simple notes at first, finding the spaces between the frequencies that threatened to tear everything apart. Dr. Rodriguez caught on, his guitar adding depth and structure to the melody. The Lumina's crystalline forms began to pulse in rhythm, their natural resonance adding new dimensions to the music. Ambassador Arwaiketa's mineral patterns shifted to amplify certain frequencies while dampening others. Even the mechanical engineers found their place in the growing symphony, their precise calculations translating into pure harmonic mathematics. The other stations, NXVAL called out, their voice carrying new hope. "They're stabilizing. The network, it's rebalancing itself." Through the viewing ports, they watched as the failing station steadied, their light neither flaring nor dimming but pulsing in perfect harmony with their own. The galaxy-spanning instrument was tuning itself, guided by the music they created together. But something else was happening too. The space between stars began to shimmer with possibilities, reality itself bending to the will of their cosmic orchestra. And in the distance, growing stronger with each passing moment, they heard it, a response to their symphony, ancient and powerful and filled with impossible promise. "That signal," Chen breathed, her bow never stopping as she maintained their part in the universal song. "It's not random interference. It's sheet music." The holographic displays erupted with new patterns, showing them what they'd been preparing for all along. Not just a performance, but a conversation. A dialogue written in the language of creation itself. As the final measures of their movement faded, the station's AI spoke once more. Harmonic convergence achieved. All nodes stable. Beginning final movement, first contact protocol. Chen looked at her fellow musicians, human, Lumina, silicoid, mechanical, all playing their parts in something greater than themselves. They had thought they were preventing a disaster, but instead, they had just finished tuning the instrument. The real concert was about to begin. In all of human history, no one had ever heard music like this. The Observatory of Harmony Station had become a concert hall unlike any other, its walls alive with shifting patterns of light and mathematics. Chen stood at its center, her violin singing notes that shouldn't have been possible in normal space. Beside her, Dr. Rodriguez's guitar wove harmonies that seemed to bend reality itself. The lumina pulsed with chromatic symphonies, while Ambassador Rykada's crystalline form resonated with deep, eternal frequencies that spoke of spinning galaxies and ancient stars. And through it all, the response continued to build. It came from everywhere at once, from the space between atoms and the vast gulfs between galaxies. A song of creation itself, written in gravitational waves and quantum harmonies, in the dance of dark matter and the birth of stars. The beings who had built the Harmony Network weren't gone, they had become one with the music of the spheres, waiting for others to join their eternal symphony. "They're teaching us," NX Val whispered, their crystalline form shimmering with understanding. "Every species, every civilization that reaches this point, we're all learning the same song." The mechanical engineers' displays confirmed it. Similar scenes were playing out at Harmony stations across the galaxy. Different species, different instruments, different songs, all gradually learning to play together in a harmony that transcended the boundaries of biology, physics, and spacetime itself. "Look!" Dr. Rodriguez pointed through the observatory windows with his free hand, never missing a note. The void between stars had begun to shift and flow like liquid light. Impossible geometries blossomed in space as the cosmic symphony reached its crescendo. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the final movement. Chen felt it in her bones, the moment everything changed. Her bow moved of its own accord, drawing out a pure, perfect note that contained within it all the hope and dreams and determination that had driven humanity to reach for the stars. Around her, every other player added their own voice to the harmony, the crystalline resonance of the lumina, the mineral songs of the silicoids, the precise mathematical frequencies of the mechanical beings. And in that moment of perfect harmony, the response resolved into something they could all understand. Not words, not images, but pure meaning carried on waves of music. "Welcome, children of the stars. You have learned to sing together. Now you are ready to join the great symphony." The station's ancient systems blazed with new life, its true purpose finally revealed. It was more than a communication device or a musical instrument, it was a gateway. A doorway opened through the power of harmony, leading to realms where music and mathematics and consciousness were one and the same.